Hello everyone, this is JPO, and today we once again have
Jay here.
and
Emma.
and introducing for the first time in our top 5 podcast, we have
Christopher!
yes, Christopher. Welcome to the top 5.
Oh, thank
You
you.
and I have been doing the other thing for a long time, and you and Jay have never done a podcast together,
Correct.
which
First time
is
talking, as far as
you
I
know
understand. Yeah.
shocking.
Yeah.
Shocking.
Well,
But
you
we're
never
here.
had me on as a guest on your other podcast.
Well, what are you talking about? We do top 5s all the time. You know, it's not much different except we're just talking. But anyway, enough of that. Today we'll be talking about our top 5 movies of 2023. What a year 2023. A strange
Yeah.
one for films. For me personally, it was a pretty disappointing for the most part. I went to the theaters 10 times. Most of those films I was looking forward to, most of them were pretty disappointing. They were just okay. And so this year, the last couple months, I didn't want my list to just be okay. I wanted to have a pretty decent list for the first time. And so watched a bunch of stuff, and I think I have some good stuff this year. How about you, Christopher?
I kind of just played catch up the last month or two, and I found some movies that I liked. That's kind of short of it. Kind of like halfway through the year, I got a roommate, and so with him, I've been more intentional to watch things. On my own, it's just hard to sit down and want to watch things. So having a roommate, it's been great. In fact, even this month, we've watched basically a movie every night. So
Oh,
it's
wow.
been pretty nice. So yeah, but also like at the beginning of the month was still like kind of playing catch up for 2023. So yeah, I found some stuff I liked. There's some stuff like probably some popular things I'm not that interested in. Like I've never seen an Indiana Jones movie, but I found a few movies I liked.
All right. Jay and Emma?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like the first half of the year I was getting a bit worried because Jay reminded me that we have this podcast and I need to watch 6 movies that came out this year. And I was like at what 3 or 4.
Yeah.
But then like these last few months I was watching more movies and I actually liked a lot of them. So
All right.
Yeah.
Well,
Oh,
yeah.
do you want
Go
me
ahead.
to? Yeah, I this year I actually saw fewer new releases than I usually do. I only saw 75, so
only.
sorry about that. But yeah, I it's interesting. A lot of them, a lot of big movies I did like a lot. A lot of them though I was kind of like on the other side of the critical response, like, oh, Killers of the Flower Moon didn't love that as much as everyone else seems to. Past Lives didn't quite love that. I don't dislike either of them, but yeah, I found myself on a bit of the outs of what was popular and what wasn't. So, but yeah, I was able to sort of scrape together a top 5 that I think is pretty solid here. Don't feel as strongly about some of my picks as I usually do, but yeah.
Yeah. Well, for you listeners out there, if you're new to the top 5, how we usually go is that everyone goes and talks about our number 5, and then we go to 4, 3, 2, and then we talk about some honorable mentions. We talk about our favorite film, and after we're done with all that, we talk about our least favorite film, and then our most anticipated film of next year. And so, why don't we start with number 5 with Emma?
Yeah, so my number 5 this year was The Hunger Games: The Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes. This one I didn't hear about until Jay was like, "Oh, it's in the theater. Let's go watch it." So I ended up going with him and my sister, and I thought it was a really fun watch, and just diving deep into the history of the Hunger Games was really cool, and seeing Snow as a character and seeing how he was pretty irredeemable from the start was interesting.
Yeah, the book came out a few years ago, I think 2020. Um and I kind of started reading it out of obligation just cuz I'm a Hunger Games fan, and then I was surprised to discover, hey, this is actually a really good book with interesting characters and interesting themes, and it doesn't because you're like, a President Snow sequel. Who wants to, or prequel? Who wants to see a prequel about President Snow from the Hunger Games? But then reading the book, I'm like, oh, this is actually really, really good. So when they announced the movie, and Rachel Zegler is in the cast, and she's phenomenal. She does a lot of singing, surprisingly. It's almost a musical, but yeah, just like incredible her performance. Tom Blythe plays the President Snow, young President Snow. But I was so excited when they announced the cast and Francis Lawrence returning to direct. Yeah, it's just a really good adaptation of the book. And Emma, I know you read the book after the
I
movie.
only got to like chapter 3 or something.
Okay.
I still need to finish reading it.
So yeah, I agree with you that it is really, really good.
Yeah, I liked that it like stood on its own too really well. It didn't like assume that you watched the Hunger Games and only write off of the name of the Hunger Games. It was actually a really solid story in and of itself.
Yeah. And not even one that needs a sequel, unlike a certain other YA franchise with a major prequel series that has kind of stopped now, but just kept on going. And yeah, this is a self-contained story.
Any thoughts, Christopher?
No, haven't seen honestly any Hunger Games movie.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I do like Jennifer Lawrence a little bit, but also like I don't know if I want to watch 4 movies of it.
Yeah.
Might have been something I not like last night. I watched Love and Dragons for the first time, and I was like, I feel like this would be something I would be more interested in like 5 years ago, and I wonder if it would be like the same thing with like the Hunger Games. So
Yeah.
I don't know. Maybe one
It-
day.
It is like, in terms of the young adult franchises, it is one of the better ones, just in terms of like themes and characters and filmmaking. But yeah, I think it does have somewhat limited appeal if you didn't sort of engage with it as a teenager.
Mhm.
But yeah,
Yeah,
I mean,
especially
I
at the
would say
time it was coming out. Like you and I, me and Jay, we would go to the theaters and watch those films with a group of
yep.
people
Mm.
because like we liked the series. You
Mhm.
liked the books. I was there for the films until the last couple that I was disappointed with. I haven't seen this new film at all. I might watch it if I go through all the Hunger Game films again one day. It's been a few years since I've seen them.
Yeah.
I'm not against watching it, but it was just like, oh, really, Hunger Games? Okay, well, that's that's one of those films I'll watch if it's randomly on streaming one day and I have nothing else to watch. So,
Mhm.
yeah.
Yeah, so on to my number 5. This is, I believe this premiered at Sundance earlier this year. A huge comedy if you're into sort of the more off the path, not quite mainstream, but mainstream enough comedy. This is um, Emma Seligman's Bottoms. This is the story of two girls in high school, and they make this fight club to try and win their crushes' hearts. And it's just this wildly hilarious comedy, just zany high school comedy, but it's just so well performed and so well written. And I was laughing so hard when I saw it in theaters the first time, that I was like having trouble breathing at times because I was laughing so much. Um, and then I I took some friends to see me. I was like, "You have to see this movie," and we were all laughing the entire time. And just, yeah, it's so much fun to go and see a movie and just be constantly laughing. And there's so many, like, in the background of shots there will be jokes that you don't catch the first time around. Like, there's a classroom scene, and there's one of the students is in the back of the classroom in like a cage, like caged up like a raging wild student that's here in his football uniform, just in a cage in the back of the classroom. They don't cut to him. They don't. It's just slightly out of focus, but you can tell.
It's good.
Yeah, that it's just like the whole movie has that sort of like just throwing everything at the wall, and most of it sticks. And yeah, it's just so much fun. Nicholas Galitzine, I believe that's how you pronounce his name, plays a like the dumb jock character here, and just phenomenal performance. He's probably most well known as like a romantic lead in British like romantic dramas, and here he's playing like a dumb jock, American jock, and he does it so well that you're like, wait a second, he should be doing this character, not the like heartthrob roles. He's just so good at this character. Yeah, just incredible. Io Adebri, who's this has been a big year for her. She's also in Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles and The Bear, the TV show. She's one of the leads, and she is also just phenomenal.
Yeah, this is a movie I do have interest in, but I was not able to see.
I have not seen this film either. I have nothing to add to this conversation.
I've never heard of it.
Now you have.
All right, Christopher.
My turn. Okay. My number 5 is called Ballerina. For those watching in the future, this is not related to John Wick. This is its own movie. It's from South Korea. It's a Netflix original. It's not necessarily the story that I find amazing. The color grading. Oh my freaking gosh. Legitimately, one of the most euphoric movies I've seen color-wise. Insane. Like, that's probably legitimately why I like the movie. I think the action sequences, I think, are edited really heavily. However, no shot is reused. Every single shot is, like, unique. So it's always a different angle. And when I kind of realized that kind of like blew me away. So this is more of a movie that I really enjoy from a technical angle. So yeah, I'm not the craziest about the story, but yeah, from a technical angle, I love this movie. It was a great visual watch.
Yeah, I haven't seen this one, or I didn't hear about it until I saw it on your list here. But yeah, looking at the trailer, the visuals are just really, really good. Very, very reminiscent of like John Wick, or I know Netflix has done other, like, I think it's Gunpowder Milkshake is one that kind of looks similar. But yeah, you can see the technical craft and all of the colors, as you mentioned, are just sort of popping off the screen. So yeah, I could definitely see.
Yeah, I will throw one little counter because I heard the John Wick thing being thrown a lot. It's not as action heavy as I was led to believe. I didn't even watch the trailer. Like, there are definitely lots of moments of kind of just like planning, basically.
Oh,
So there was less action than I was personally expecting, but yeah, still solid.
yeah.
I haven't seen it. I just know whatever you told me, Christopher. So,
Same here.
all right. Moving on to my number 5. And speaking of John Wick, my number 5 film of the year is John Wick 4. Um, this is one of those catch-up films where I was trying to find one, and it's like, John Wick. I was vaguely interested in this series. I had never watched it, just seeing clips. It's like stunt heavy. There's a lot of great choreography, and then it's like, okay, well, this film came out this year. I guess I'll watch through the series, and so I binged all 4 films. And while this is not the best film of the series, I thought I enjoyed it for the most part. The story, you don't watch John Wick films for their story because the story is just somebody does something to anger John Wick, and John Wick goes on revenge, or he's trying to survive, or whatever. This was his revenge film, another one of his revenge films, and you watch it for the action. There is a lot of action. I know, Jacob, you have a lot of issues in terms of the action, and you'll talk about that in a moment. I really like choreography, really well done choreography, and I like wonders. Really long takes of just no cuts. You see what the actors are doing. They're going at it. It looks like a dance, looks pretty cool. I enjoy a lot of it, but this is a really long film. It feels really long. But I still enjoyed the action. The story, okay, yeah, it's there. there's some issues about it, and I'll talk about that in a later entry on my list for very good reasons. But yeah, it's a good action flick. Probably better if you just watch all four at once. Just get your action vibe out of the way. If you can sit through all that.
I would not be able to sit through that. I watched the first John Wick and I was like, I don't want to watch another one.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I haven't seen any John Wick movies, but yeah, usually I'm usually there more for a story than, action. So I think even with Ballerina, I think there was a little bit of hesitation. However, Korean films typically I feel like are good about like story, uh,
Yeah.
especially compared to American counterparts. So Ballerina was definitely disappointing in that. But like I had seen like some Snyder films for the first time this year, and just like the last hours are always just so bogged with action. So I'm like, if I can't sit through those, then I don't know if I could do John Wick.
Yeah, I watched the first John Wick like when it was a little bit after it had gotten big on Netflix, and everyone was, because that was one, it didn't make much money in the theater, but when it was released later, like everyone started watching it, and that's how they were able to make these sequels. So yeah, I saw the first one, and I think I saw the second one at home as well. And then I liked both of those enough that when the third one came out a few years ago, I saw that in theaters, and I was like, "Oh, this is one of my favorite of the year." But also, the action's starting to get a little bit long. Chapter 4 is even longer action, and the story is just incomprehensible. I'm sorry, the John Wick lore. I don't care enough about the high table to care about all of these conversations about the high table and what the high table's doing and who's at the high table and who's not at the high table and what you need to do to the high table. And, yeah. And then each action scene, no joke, goes on for 10 minutes too long. Like most action scenes in most movies don't even go on for 10 minutes, but in John Wick Chapter 4, each action scene goes on for 10 minutes too long. So there's a certain point in the movie where John Wick has just conquered this giant hurdle, and then all of his progress gets taken away. And at that point, I just considered standing up and walking out of the theater because I was like, I am not having fun with this. I am so tired. I want to go home. But I didn't. I sat through the rest of it, the last 20 minutes. Yeah, I just couldn't get into it. And it is not a fun movie to not get into, because if you aren't into it in the first 20 minutes, it's another 2.5 hours of the exact same thing.
Yeah. Part of the issue is because the third one is progressed perfectly, I think, in terms of your enemy variety. It's like a video game. You start out with your basic level villains, it's a good tutorial. And then as the film goes on, your enemies get tougher to the point where it takes a lot to defeat them at the end. And so they start the fourth film with those enemy types. Then it takes 10 minutes to defeat two random goons. Um, I mean, it looked pretty. The action was pretty fun, but
Yeah.
yeah, like as someone like you who's like, okay, yeah, do we really need 10 minutes? Sure, yeah, I can get that, and it's that for most of the fights in the film. I enjoy it because it looked pretty to me, but yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
We should mention Donnie Yen, and
Oh, Donnie Yen,
yeah,
yes.
he is incredible. And then, oh, why am I forgetting his name?
Hiroyuki Sanada.
Hiroyuki Sanada. Yes. Who my biggest complaint with every single Hollywood blockbuster, except for like a couple, is not enough Hiroyuki Sanada. Like Avengers Endgame, he shows up for one scene, not enough of him. Mortal Kombat shows up in the beginning, not enough of him. Um, I don't know what's a random blockbuster.
Well, what was the
Oppenheimer, he's not in it, not enough Hiroyuki Sanada. That's the problem with Oppenheimer. So
what
you see him get so much focus is like, yeah, to give him a big fight scene, it's just electric.
what was he in Endgame?
He's the Japanese
Okay,
crime boss that Hawkeye kills in like one scene.
yeah, I
Yeah.
remember now. Okay,
Yeah, he will show up all over the place. Usually for stuff like that, one scene. So to see him actually get, and in John Wick, it's like one scene, but since every action scene is like 30 minutes long, it's a pretty long scene.
Okay.
All right, and with that, we move on to our number 4 with Emma.
So my number 4 is Oppenheimer. And this one I initially wasn't thinking of watching this year because I was like, oh, I don't think I'll actually like it. Then I saw Godzilla and I was like, okay, now I want to see Oppenheimer to see the west side of things. And I was surprised at how like invested I was, like how much it gripped me, the story, like from start to finish. There were a few points where I was feeling like it was a bit slow, but then I would get pulled right back in with all the intrigue that was going on. So
Yeah, I suspect we'll be talking about this one quite a bit throughout this episode, but yeah, it's a 3-hour biopic that moves like an action movie. It's the way it's edited, the way it's shot, everything. This is the movie that after kind of falling out with Nolan after Dunkirk and especially Tenet, this got me right back on board the Nolan train. I am there for whatever he does.
You could actually hear the dialogue.
Yes. Yeah, John and I actually did a full podcast episode on this for our other podcast, Binging Barbie. So yeah.
Yes. And part of that is because of, the main event of Barbenheimer. Like, we created a whole podcast, Binging Barbie, to talk about Barbie. because it was airing next to Oppenheimer. So, yeah. I like the music of Oppenheimer. I think for me, it's the best I've heard from Ludwig Göransson. And basically what he did was just copy Hans Zimmer.
To be fair, Hans Zimmer copies himself quite a bit, so
of course.
And yeah, I just everything about Oppenheimer, and it works so well in a theater. But what I was surprised, because I watched it with Emma at home, once it was out on Blu-ray, it works just as good. Like you are invested in the whole thing. Yeah, I just this is currently, when we're recording, the favorite to win Best Picture this year, and I think it is very deserving. And that's not always something that I think about, the 3-hour biopic drama that is likely going to win Best Picture. But this is just, it's an achievement in cinematic storytelling, and just so incredible that, I mean, it made almost $1 billion. It probably will eventually reach $1 billion. How does an Oppenheimer movie make almost $1 billion? Well, the answer is when it's this good.
Yeah, all hail Christopher Nolan.
Yep.
What else can I say, really?
Because Oppenheimer is part of your list, Jay.
Yeah, my number 4. I'm doing a bit of a cheat here. My number 4 is Barbenheimer.
But did you watch them one right after the other?
I watched Barbie on Thursday night, because we were recording in a reaction right after, and then I saw Oppenheimer the next day. So I didn't do the full double feature like other people did, but I did see both of them within a very short time span. It's just having these two ginormous blockbusters that are not superhero, not action, both auteur driven. Like, we have filmmakers with creative vision behind the camera who are able to express their creative vision. With Barbie has a little bit more studio oversight, but even still, it's like this huge, and it goes places you aren't expecting. So yeah, watching those two succeed together, and that there was such a sense of community. I was worried when they announced that Barbie and Oppenheimer on the same day. Oh, what kind of conflict are we going to see between the Barbie fans and the Oppenheimer fans? And the answer was no, there was no conflict. Everyone was just kind of enjoying the two together. Yeah, it's a magical cinematic moment. It was the biggest weekend at the box office since Avengers Endgame came out. And just so much fun. I mean, we dressed up for the Barbie movie. I didn't dress up for Oppenheimer, but that one's a bit more difficult to dress up for.
Yeah, the
Yeah,
only drama
there's
I've
so
heard
much
about,
pink.
Yeah.
the only drama I've heard about was one of my coworkers wanted to see Barbie, but they were sold out, so he ended up going seeing Oppenheimer, but he dressed up in pink as a protest.
I called off. I work at a theater, so I called off the evening show to see Oppenheimer. So I'm a tech, so I have to wear black. So I wore black to Oppenheimer.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Well,
Well, on
that's
brand.
thematically appropriate.
Yeah.
yeah, no. I mean, as I stated before, we started a whole podcast series of watching 40 different Barbie movies just to get to the Barbenheimer time. And that was a time for sure.
Yeah.
So yeah. All right, Christopher.
My number 4 is Asteroid City, directed by Wes Anderson. Back early December, I saw Fantastic Mr. Fox for the first time, and I was delightfully entertained, I guess I will say, by it. And so, in search of 2023 movies, I went to Walmart a few weeks ago, and I saw Asteroid City, not just on Blu-ray, but with a slipcover. I'm like, heck yes! So I bought it, and I watched it. And I don't know what it means, but it was just fun. It was just enjoyable. That's all it was to me. Like, I don't really... I'll look at what it means one day, but just for what it was weird and it was fun. That's all I can really say about it.
Yeah, I saw this one as well when it came to Peacock, and Wes Anderson is one of those directors that Jay, you tell me all the time to watch Wes Anderson, and I'm like, one day, whatever. I had seen a couple of his films. I had really liked Grand Budapest, and so because this was new when I watched it, and Wes Anderson is one of those people where I don't get it the first time. It's like, okay, yeah, visually entertaining, some weird, funny moments that I'm sure have great thematic meaning. I'm just not as artistic enough to understand what it is, and so it's enjoyable as any other Wes Anderson film. So yeah.
Yeah, this is one. Wes Anderson is one of the few directors who I've actually seen all of his films, including some of his early stuff, which is less widely seen. And I don't like that as much as some other people do. But yeah, this is definitely very much a Wes Anderson film, just in the style and the tone and everything. Um, I really need to rewatch it because I couldn't quite get into it. Um, I'm not entirely sure why. I think there's a lot of framing devices in the story, or like framing narratives that keep kind of like cutting into the main narrative, which was the part I was more invested in. But yeah, I mean, wonderful cast and just so delightful to see a Wes Anderson movie. I was a bigger fan of the French Dispatch, his last one that a lot of people didn't like. So I'm a bit on the outs with this one, but again, I need to see it again. I have the DVD, so I will watch it at some point, and hopefully get some more out of it. I think, as both of you are saying, yeah, there's a lot more to parse here, even than in other Wes Anderson movies. It's very much there's a lot going on, and it's kind of dealing with the last few years in the world, as many films are doing nowadays. So yeah, there I can't say that I got it all on the first watch either. So
Yeah, I kind of saw your letterbox review, and I guess I was the only reviewer rating of viewers I saw Wes Anderson. So for a moment, I was wondering, like, does he like Wes Anderson? But you do, so that's...
yeah,
I don't know. I guess that's just interesting to hear.
yeah, and I don't like all Wes Andersons equally, but it really depends. Yeah, this one again, I want to rewatch it because I feel like there's something I'm missing that if I rewatch it, I'll get.
Do you think that is just from the entertainment side, or unearthing the meaning of it?
I think a little bit of both. Yeah, I can't really parse what, and also I saw this when it was in theaters quite a while ago. So, but yeah, I mean, I love his humor, and I liked a lot of the humor here. So I think it's more of the thematic side and trying to figure out what it is exactly saying. But yeah, performances especially are just so phenomenal. Um, Huge cast, a lot of names: Tilda Swinton, Jason Schwartzman, Scarlett Johansson, Tom Hanks, his first ever Wes Anderson.
Hmm.
Yeah, and yeah, everyone gets like a moment to shine, as is often true of Wes Anderson films. Like that's the stuff that I really like in this.
All right. Well, moving on to my number four. My number four is Mission Impossible: Dead Reckoning Part One. Now, Mission Impossible, that's a film series that's usually on Jay's list. Um, but I was desperate for finding good films to add to my list, and so this is the first time I've watched a Mission Impossible film the year released. And so, yeah. It's really surprising just how solid the entire franchise is. It's like, oh, you think that after each film tries to go bigger and bigger, and it's like, oh, it's more personal and more personal each one, that like eventually, like the Fast and Furious franchise, it's gonna like be dying out and losing so much quality and just go way overboard to the point where they go to space. um but this, this one was just another really solid entry. And yes, it's going bigger in that it's a two-part film, but this film does a really good job at being a part one in just telling its own story. The main story is just this one object that they try to get, and that's the entire point of the film. Whatever happens in the next film, whenever that comes out in a couple years, we'll get to that. But for this first one, it's really solid. Although it doesn't have the giant stunts that you typically find in the Mission Impossible film. And of course, understanding this is a part one, they're saving it for the next one. But generally, really solid. It is a really long film, but like I was engaged the entire time. It's like, yes, pretty good. I don't know why every time a new Mission Impossible film comes out, I'm like, okay, yeah, I know I like them, but I'll watch them later. And then I'm watching them, and it's like, man, why don't I ever watch them in theaters? So I still haven't watched it in theaters. Maybe for part two, I will. But yeah, no, I really enjoyed this one.
Well, I got to see the motorcycle jump in theaters multiple times
Oh yeah, because they played it in front of Avatar.
in front of everything.
Well, that too. It's just because we saw Avatar twice,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
then I saw it many more times than that. So I saw the motorcycle jump quite, but I also saw Mission Impossible in IMAX. So yeah, this is what I feel kind of bad because again, I'm my thoughts on a lot of these movies differ from sort of the critical consensus and from um, what people here are saying, because I didn't love this one, and I've loved other Mission Impossibles, and I can't really quantify why. I had a fun enough time watching it. Just I think similar to John Wick, it's just very long. Um, but yeah, I don't have anything too negative to say about it. Just that kind of the experience of it was not what I was fully hoping for, and I hope that
Yeah.
the next one is sort of more in line. I love Pom Clementif plays sort of this non-speaking villain, like side villain role, and she's probably most well known as Mantis in Guardians of the Galaxy, but she's just so cool. Like her outfit and her entire design and character are just so cool, and every time she was on screen I was very very happy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And like it's a shame that the film didn't really do as well in the box office. And it's mostly due because it was released very close to Barbenheimer.
Yep.
And
The week
well,
before.
the week before, yeah. So Yeah, it's
They
a
told him
shame.
to move it. Tom Cruise didn't want to move it.
Yep, and that's what happened. Well, moving on to our number threes, Emma.
My number 3 is Barbie. So, yep, as Jay said already, we went to see it in theater together, and I really enjoyed it. It was a fun watch, and then had some good messages, and just made you think, really. So, I was not expecting that at all from a Barbie movie. Yeah, I think I
Yeah.
went into it pretty blind too. So,
Yeah, they didn't release a ton of information about it beforehand. Like they obviously had a whole bunch of like promotion for it, but in terms of like the themes and the story, sort of as it gets into that last third where it takes some turns you don't expect from a Barbie movie.
Yeah.
And yeah, Greta Gerwig is one of my favorite filmmakers, and Emma, I think you've seen most of her films because you've seen Lady Bird and Little Women.
I don't think I saw Lady Bird.
That was the one that during COVID where you recreated the scene for me for one of
Yeah, I
my
don't think I saw
classes.
it.
I thought we watched it after doing the
Maybe.
recreation.
In that case, I don't remember it.
But yeah, just to see her level up in this way in her filmmaking and yet keep a lot of what makes her interesting as a filmmaker, it's exciting because other directors have done that, but it hasn't really been as I've been following their career. Whereas Gerwig, I saw Lady Bird in 2017, I saw Little Women in 2019, and then Barbie, I was there for Barbie as well. So it's just exciting. I missed when Nolan did that. So to get to see when Gerwig's doing that, and she feels like a filmmaker who is at that level of sort of just both popularity and craft.
Have you seen it, Christopher?
I have. I think I had just heard so much conversation and hype over it. I saw it when it finally released on physical media. Because, especially before my roommate came, I just never really went to theaters. I would go to theaters to keep up with the MCU. I went to see Oppenheimer, Lightyear. I feel like those Oppenheimer and Lightyear were the only movies I saw in theaters before my roommate came around. Oh, and Past Lives, because that's a Korean movie. Um, and highly acclaimed. So yeah, I waited till it came out on physical media, and yeah, there was just so much hype around it, especially on the comedy angle, and it didn't really hit those buttons for me. It was also the first Ryan Gosling movie I had seen, so I was not familiar with his style. So that's a significant part of it as well. However, the Billie Eilish song made me weep. That really hit
Oh,
me.
wow.
Yeah, I that got me. So huge props for that movie, for that song to exist. Yeah, I love that song.
Yeah.
Honestly, I haven't really listened to it since the movie, but I do like the song. Yeah.
Well,
Yeah, that's
obviously,
not the part that gets me. The part that gets me is the monologue. But yeah, the last third has so many moments of just like where all of the character arcs are coming to a close, and you have these sort of nice moments. And especially, I mean, the Billie Eilish song, they're playing the song, and Barbie is having this big internal revelation, but then they're also playing all of these clips, and they're actually like home movies from the people who made Barbie. Um, of like videos of their kids or doing different things, and it's like, oh, you feel the humanity behind the behind this movie, and like, yeah, it's just kind of cool in that sense as well.
mm-hmm. And we've mentioned this multiple times in today's episode, but like we created a whole another podcast, Binging Barbie. Go check that out. We have a Patreon, so you can support us there.
John had
We
to suffer
watch.
through a bunch of bad animated movies, so go and support him.
I mean, suffer is not really the word for it. I enjoyed that time until the end. Um, but yeah, no, we obviously watched around 40 different Barbie movies, and so through those 40 different movies, I had my expectations of Barbie, and the film was the complete opposite of what I was expecting. And kind of, I've watched it twice now,
Oh,
and
you have?
yeah, I've watched it again. I told you
When?
this.
No,
I told you
don't,
this.
I don't remember.
It's a couple weeks ago.
You tell me a lot of things, John.
Yeah, I watched it with my mom and sister.
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah, and I could appreciate what they were going for, but it wasn't at all what I was hoping for in the Barbie movie. And so I thought overall it was okay. A little disappointing that none of the influence of the 40 films and 20 years of Barbie films just wasn't really present in that artistic film, but okay. Yeah. Yeah. So,
Yeah, it's definitely more about the toys than any of the animated films. So.
Yeah, I think since that, Gerwig didn't grow up with these animated Barbie movies, so if she had, maybe she would have included more references to those, and like at least a Princess and the Pauper reference, like at least that much.
yeah,
I
the
do
big
very
famous
much
one.
agree with that. Yep.
But yeah, it's not for me. I wasn't the audience for this, and I didn't really care for a lot of the humor. The charm of the Toyland just doesn't hit as much in second viewing, not as much as Life in the Dream House. But let's move on to Jay.
Yeah, so my number 3 is a bit of a surprise to me. I did not go into this expecting to love it as much as I did, and this is Godzilla minus one. And this has been the response of pretty much everyone I've talked to about this, of like, a Godzilla movie? Sure, I'll go and see it, and then walking out being just completely floored and like, wait a second, that was not like good, but a masterpiece? Like a blockbuster with emotional storytelling that makes you care about the characters. And like Godzilla shows up, and instead of being like, yay, the city is going boom, you're like, no, no, not the city, no, Godzilla, stop. And yeah, just because there's an idea I heard, and I wish I could credit it to the person who originally came up with it, but that this is about horror movies and thrillers, but I think it applies more generally. But that the best horror movies interrupt another movie. And this is very much that thing of, we're seeing this story of, it's a former kamikaze pilot who abandons his mission, and then gets sort of, he survives the war but then has to go back to his home, and his home has been destroyed and his family is dead, and has to kind of create a new life. And then Godzilla shows up, and it's like, you care so much about these characters because they spend the time developing them and giving them emotional arcs. And then there's also Godzilla. The Godzilla stuff is spectacular. These huge set pieces that just, they get your heart pumping. Yeah, they make you emotional as well. Like there are moments of triumph and moments of sadness, and it's everything you go to the movie theater for, all in one movie.
Yeah, Christopher, this was also your number 3.
It was. Yeah, similar to like some movies I decided to watch in theaters, I saw online that there was a lot of praise directed toward this movie. And I've never seen a Godzilla movie. I've honestly never really had interest, because I'm not, like I kind of alluded to, like John Wick, I'm not necessarily there to just watch nonstop action. And so when I heard that this Godzilla movie was, dare I say, not an action movie, I'm like, I'm hooked. I want to see this story, and I think it's a really solid movie. I will say, to kind of add to my conversation a little bit, last night I watched Bong Joon Ho's The Host for the first time.
Yes.
Yes. I feel like that movie elicited more emotion from me, especially with Mr. Song's performance. He's an incredible actor, potentially my favorite actor. Um, so Godzilla minus one didn't necessarily get me to that brink of emotionalism. Like, it probably brought other people. I think other people do like the movie more than I did, but like, I cannot deny, I think as a whole, I hate to play a comparison game, but I am. I do think Godzilla minus one is a better movie than The Host. It's a really, really solid movie. I highly recommend it. Yeah, definitely something I intend to buy.
Yeah, you just reminded me I need to rewatch The Host, because that's one that I didn't connect with on a first viewing. But I was thinking after watching Godzilla minus one, like what are other similar movies I could watch, and The Host is definitely like in terms of monster movies that aren't about the monster.
Mhm. I think the thing about the Host for me is that Godzilla is more of a grand scale destructor, while the Host was more specific and personal,
Yeah,
attacking specific individual people. And and you were kind of like seeing more like the struggle of a rescue than what Godzilla was. And nothing against Godzilla. Again, I think it's a incredible movie, 4.5 stars kind of thing. But yeah, there was something very personal about the Host that got me.
Yeah, for me, I've been a big fan of Godzilla for a long time. When the 2014 film came out, I watched all the Godzilla films. Like, there's 60 years of Godzilla films. That's almost 40 years. 40 if you include the bad Netflix ones. Um, but, I always liked them all. I enjoyed the recent American ones, not because of I think of them as artistic pieces, but because they have what I like in Godzilla action. But I wasn't thinking that there would be another really good Godzilla film that's just like, okay, it's artistic, it's emotional, it has everything. Because normally you don't think about the human characters. And so, to my shock, that after 60 years, I actually care about these humans. And I care about them more than I care about Godzilla showing up. And so, it was quite a shock that we got a really good Godzilla film after 60 years of just basic fun. So, yeah. And I guess moving on to my number three. My number three is in Across the Spider Verse, the second Spider Verse film. Yes, yeah, you could hear me wanting to go into. Um, but yeah, Across the Spider Verse. I like Spider Man. I really liked the Into the Spider Verse film. I thought it was a great visual piece of art with different art styles and animation, different techniques. And it was also just a good love letter to Spider Man in general, and telling of the story of this very new character that we're getting a lot of love recently in Miles Morales. And so a sequel to that I really wanted, and we got to see just a lot of crazy just multiverse and just the multiverse that I like versus whatever the MCU is trying to do. Using it, having all these characters, being very creative in what they're doing with it. Um, and I thought that what they set up in this film was really good, really solid. Unfortunately, this film is a part one. And I was alluding to this in John Wick, in that this year had a lot of part ones. Um, this is a part one. Mission Impossible is a part one. John Wick was almost a part one. And Fast and Furious 10 is a part one. And what most of the part ones did wrong is that they didn't have an ending to their film that concluded the main story of the film. It's just half of a film. And that's not good to just cut your film in the middle. Spider Verse sets up so much and then doesn't get to that because it's for the next film. And depending on how that film goes, whether it's good, it'll be great. But if that film doesn't do well, then that really brings down this film. And that's the big struggle of part ones and part twos. That's why I liked Mission Impossible, because it was one solid tale, one solid film. That's why I didn't like Fast X, because it wasn't a film. It was just action. Oh no, characters dying. Maybe they did not. And just ending with a cliffhanger and no direction of where we're gonna go to next. This film tried something with Gwen, but she wasn't the main character of the film, and so her journey wasn't the main present thing of the film, and so the main present thing of the film just ended, and we didn't get to that, and we're waiting for part two. I hope part two is good, but the biggest issue with all these films is that we're not going to get part two until 2025
At
on
the
any of
earliest
them,
for Spider-Verse.
at the earliest. And so, what are they doing? This isn't a television show where you can have part one of an episode and then have part two the very next week where everybody's excited. They're asking us to wait 2 years and to care.
Yeah.
Okay, sure. Yeah. So,
That's actually the reason that Across the Spider-Verse didn't make it into my top 5, is because it didn't have an ending. And I was like, okay, I just don't know if the story's good or not because the story isn't complete.
yeah. And so, what we got, I enjoyed, and I can somewhat tell that we're gonna have a good story, maybe, but, like, we'll see. But I enjoyed this film more than others, so that's why it's number 3.
I think a lot of people really, really enjoyed this one.
Mhm.
This is another one, again, I feel bad about constantly doing this, but yeah, I'm not as in love with this as other people are. And yeah, similar thing. The first time I saw this, I was like, I kept waiting for it to, because it starts out really, really strong, but then they get into the multiverse stuff, and the multiverse stuff is just kind of like shoe leather. I don't find it all that interesting. It's just like, oh, there's a different version of Spider-Man. Oh, and there's another different version, and another different version, and another different version. I'm like, I don't care about this canon events. I don't care. Get back to the good emotional stuff. And then it gets back to the good emotional stuff, and it's like build into something, and then it ends. And I was like, oh, why did we spend all of that time on the multiverse stuff that I don't care about to then just end as the emotional stuff is getting good? So that frustrated me a lot. On a second viewing, it worked a little bit better. Since I knew where it was headed, I wasn't expecting more than what it was going to give. But yeah, just frustrating to end the story right there. I think if they ended it 5 minutes earlier, people wouldn't have as big of an issue with it.
Mhm.
The cliffhanger, the specific cliffhanger that they end on, because it feels like they're building up to the last action scene, and then they stop. It's like it's already very long for an animated movie. It's like 2.5 hours, which very, very uncommon. Usually animated films don't even break 2 hours. Um, so yeah, but I mean the animation is great and the characters are great, so I don't want to be too negative about it.
I actually liked the metaverse area, if just from an artistic standpoint, seeing all the different
Yeah,
designs of the Spider-Man, it was like, ooh, that's cool.
yeah, the design work and like the way they integrate different kinds of art and animation, and like
Yeah.
the vulture, that's the Da Vinci style vulture, that was really cool. um yeah, when it gets to like the council of Ricks from Rick and Morty, where like now every multiverse thing has to have their council of Ricks, and the in this one it's the council of Spider-Man. It's just that's what I start to disengage a little bit. It's like it's too much. I don't care about the canon. Why are we talking about canon events? Just get back to the good stuff. And I know hopefully the next part will have more of the good stuff, but yeah, I'm also just tired of the multiverse as a concept at this point. So
Yeah, John introduced me to all the Spider-Man movies except for the Holland movies, and um, I didn't really care about Into the Spider-Verse. I think kind of like with Maguire, which also I don't really care about. I think I just heard about the movies so much, and I think I was just expecting more than I was handed, and so I didn't really understand Into the Spider-Verse. However, Across the Spider-Verse, I enjoyed a whole lot more. I think, especially with the complexity that they threw at Miles's character. I think that really made me more invested in the story. I thought the pacing was well done for the most part. There were one or two small things. For multiverse stuff, I thought they made it simple especially in comparison to the MCU. I like at this point, like for example, like I find Loki almost pretentious at this point. It's just so self-absorbed. I don't understand why they find themselves so self-important, basically, and that's the best that the MCU has to give with the multiverse. So the fact that they didn't fully have to bog me down with a lot of scientific information that I didn't understand, it kind of gave me basic stuff that I could like play with. And so with that, I'm like, okay, I can fly with this. But yeah, especially how I wasn't in love with the first one. It was just building and building at the end for me. I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm so invested, and it just freaking ends. Like, what the frick, man? I was so upset.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I definitely agree that it is better multiverse stuff than Loki. Season 2 of Loki is incomprehensible.
Mm-hmm.
Like, yeah, the multiverse stuff is definitely better handled than like the MCU, because they, yeah, as you said, they spend less time on the mechanics of it and more on like the seeing different versions of the characters.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, that ending is a mess.
And why don't we move on to number 2?
So my number 2 is Nimona. It's an animated movie that Jay told me I should watch and would probably like, and then I watched it and liked it. Basically, this soldier is accused of killing the queen, and then the shapeshifter becomes his sidekick.
Yeah.
And they go out to clear his name.
Yeah, it's based on a comic book, and this was actually originally under production by Blue Sky Studios. They're known for Ice Age and Rio. And then Disney acquired 20th Century Fox, which was the parent company of Blue Sky, and canceled this. They were already working on it. They had already, I think, begun like previs and stuff. And there's different reports for why Disney canceled it. But one of the things that people have brought up is, this main character is a gay character, and there's a kiss between him and his boyfriend in the film, and so there's some thought from some of the people on the production team that might have been one of the reasons Disney canceled the production of this. But it was rescued by Annapurna, who they hadn't made an animated film before, but they're like, hey, we're gonna make this, and they teamed up with Netflix as well to make this film. And it's just incredible how resonant it is. And a lot of these movies, like the Disney version of this, is, there's a gay kiss or even just a reference that they can remove for international audiences, and that's it. Whereas this story, it's so, like, the themes are so baked into it, you can't remove it for an international audience. It is about being an outsider and being an outcast and finding your own place in the world and fighting for your place in society. So that's just really cool to see. This honestly might make my top 5, except I wasn't gonna talk about it since I was already gonna talk about it. Yeah, just so much fun. And the animation, it's
so
not
pretty.
Yeah, it's pretty. Like, it's not as high quality as if Blue Sky had been able to finish it, but it works just so well, and it's stylized in such a way that it doesn't really matter, that part of it. And yeah, it's just,
Yeah, and like I rewatched it again because I was looking at my top 5 and like I haven't seen Nimona. I should rewatch it, and it made me cry again. So still like it. Really good film.
Yeah, it didn't quite resonate with me as it did with you guys, but for me, the biggest apprehension was that Nomana is this shape-shifting character who's pink. And for me, being a big DC fan, we have in the Teen Titans a shape-shifting character who's green, who has a wacky personality, kind of like Nimona, but who's not evil. And
which
so I was
Nimona
like,
isn't evil, but she's sort of,
She's sort of accepted that
Yeah.
people call her
Sure.
evil, and she's like, okay,
Yeah.
then I'll be evil
yeah.
in a way.
She's
more petty.
she's
acts
chaotic.
Like,
Yeah. And so I'm not a big fan of copycats. I don't think Nimona was trying to be a copycat at all. But when I see characters who are very similar to each other, I'm like, I like one more than the other because I grew up with one more than the other. So I don't know if I'll like this other one. And sure, she was fun, and I didn't really quite care for the story in terms of just how it was structured. I saw a lot of elements coming, but doesn't matter at all. But anyway, the point is, you guys liked it. It was your number 2, and let's move on.
Yeah. My number 2 is probably the best Christmas movie to come out in many, many years. This is Alexander Payne's The Holdovers. The pitch I will give for this is that it's kind of a Christmas movie for people who don't like Christmas movies, but not in a way that if you like Christmas movies, you will dislike it. I love Christmas movies. I love this movie. But it's not your normal Christmas movie. It's about a student at this boarding school who has to stay over for the holidays for Christmas because his mom is off on some foreign vacation with her new husband, and he gets stuck with the most hated teacher of the school, this history teacher played by Paul Giamatti, who's just like grumpy and strict, and he's the teacher everyone had in high school who's just like a real piece of work. And then there's also there with the school cook Mary, who is mourning the loss of her son in the Vietnam War. This takes place in the 70s. And yeah, it's a Christmas movie, so they kind of become a little bit of a makeshift family over the course of this holiday vacation. But it's about all of Christmas, so it's about the joy and the community and the family, but it's also about the pain and the loneliness and the grief, and confronting all of these different sides. And it's just, it does everything so well. It's hilarious, but it's also like sad and touching, and every emotion associated with Christmas. There's anger in there. There's just any emotion anyone has ever ascribed to Christmas is in this film and presented so well through these characters who are just so compelling and well realized, in performances that are wonderful. Davine Joy Randolph plays Mary. She'll probably win an Oscar for it, and she totally deserves it for how well she brings that character to life. And Dominic Sessa plays the main student that it's about, and complete, like, hasn't been in anything before, but he just has that sort of movie star charisma. Just so great. Loved it so much. Watched it with my family. It's a good post Christmas movie. Sort of those between Christmas and New Year blues. It fits that vibe a little bit.
Yeah, the film wasn't for me, but I could tell that it was really solid. It's just really well filmed and edited and stylized, and compared to everything else that had come out this year, where it's like, it's studio corporate sludge, and what this film is like, okay, well, it's better than that typical Christmas Hallmark film, and it's not the studio sludge, so it's pretty good. But it's a lot of things that I was very familiar with. I'm like, okay, yeah, I'm very familiar with this story archetype, and it was done well, but wasn't for me. So, yeah.
I will talk about it later.
Foreshadowing.
Foreshadowing. And yeah, since you're going to be talking about it later, what will you be talking about now, Christopher?
Presently, I will be talking about a Korean movie called Love Reset. Just kind of like searching for 2023 movies, and I encountered this one and like, oh, might be fun. It was more than fun. It was hilarious. I laughed so hard. I don't think I've seen a movie that made me laugh this hard, ever. I do think that part of the appeal is a little rooted in the K drama genre, but also there are some legitimate moments that I would think that would make other people laugh. I am curious because like the letterbox average, like it's in the threes, but it's probably not as high as I would have thought it would be. So I do wonder like if it doesn't fully appeal to everybody, but it appealed to me. I laughed so hard. I recommend it. Go watch it.
Yeah, I don't have any familiarity with K dramas, but looking at the trailer, I could definitely see. I didn't realize it was a comedy, so. But yeah,
Yeah, it's
there's
definitely.
definitely humor
I would
that I could see even from the trailer.
Yeah, I would argue it. Like it definitely is based on a relationship, but I view it like if someone was to throw the term rom com, I would definitely emphasize the com over the rom. So
Okay.
personally, I am curious what other people would think.
Yeah, Emma, I know you watch some K
Yeah, I watched some
dramas.
K dramas. I haven't seen this one though.
Okay.
Yeah, looking at the trailer, it definitely seems like a lot of K drama humor. So
Mhm.
Yeah, maybe I'll have to watch it with you so I can get some of the jokes a little bit better.
If you guys watch it, let me know. I'm curious.
Okay. Yeah.
Well, I haven't seen it, so I can't really talk about it. But what I can talk about it is my number two, and that's Oppenheimer. We've talked about this before a couple times briefly, but for this one, it's going into this one. I was hoping that we will have another good Christopher Nolan film. I've enjoyed the past couple, but like they weren't up to par with what I'd really liked about his previous films, and so um, watching this one, it was really well done. I was interested in this new character that we did the podcast about Oppenheimer, and we did the Nolan series after watching Oppenheimer, Memento style, on our Bridging
Yeah.
Barbie podcast. So you can check that out when you watch all 40 Barbie films. Um, and so, what was interesting after watching Oppenheimer was going through Nolan's films and realizing, oh, Oppenheimer was always a thing that Nolan was going to do, even if he didn't know that he was going to do it. Because there were so many elements, character types, just thematic elements that were in Oppenheimer that were also very present in his other films. And it was just very interesting to see how it grew um, the more he got to Oppenheimer. And I had mentioned that I'd like the soundtrack. The editing, it takes a bit to get used to when you first start the film. I've not rewatched this film, but I do really want to. But it's really well told. I think it's Nolan's best written film in a really long time. Even though there's some things I'm like, you could do better with these characters. But being a biopic, it's the best biopic out there. That let's just say that. So yeah.
Yeah, it's so well made. And yeah, I have little issues with I think Kitty Oppenheimer, we don't Nolan isn't great at writing women. We talked a lot about this on our podcast, and Oppenheimer kind of gives him an out because he could just kind of focus on the men and then kind of have the women just kind of be in the background for a lot of it. But it it makes that aspect of the story, it doesn't hit as well. And then also it's very much lacking the Japanese perspective, which once again, Nolan is focusing in on a singular story, a singular perspective. But I think those are also fair criticisms of when you're making a film about a man as complex as Oppenheimer. Um, but yeah, just an incredible achievement in filmmaking that stands or stands so well. Like, for it says everything it wants to say, and it does so in a way that is more entertaining than you would expect, but also very thought provoking.
I
Yeah.
remember when I was gonna go first see this movie, and I made a joke at work like, "I'm gonna watch a movie about the Japanese," and uh, and I think that's what a lot of people were kind of like going in the movie obviously the atomic bomb is part of the spectacle, but it's not the only thing. And there were definitely a handful of people who's like, yeah, the first 2 hours were great, the last hour is trash. And I'm like, no. The movie is called Oppenheimer. And yeah, in theory, maybe it could have dove into other things. Personally, I'm fine with it not delving into the Japanese angle. I think it tells its story well. And even though it didn't crack my top five, I think it's well done for what it is.
Yeah, and I do think, because I've also seen, maybe Christopher Nolan isn't the best creator to offer that Japanese perspective, especially when there are Japanese films about this exact thing. Um, so yeah, I see both sides of that criticism. Um,
Mm.
I just did want to bring it up just in case, to get it out there, since
Yeah,
I felt like I was maybe praising it, and it deserves a lot of praise. Um,
Mm-hmm.
but yeah, I
yeah,
wanted
and
to
it was
offer both
very
of those.
interesting watching this film with a very stacked cast, but also how a lot of the thematic elements are just very present to today's culture. It's like, he's
Yeah,
worried that the bomb is gonna destroy the world, but like today, it's like, maybe we don't have the bomb, but we have other things. We have AI. We have everything that's going on with that recently, and so
yeah.
it was just very interesting. It's like,
I
wow,
mean,
yeah.
I've seen the perspective that this is Christopher Nolan trying to deal with the superhero genre that he helped popularize. I think that's maybe trivializing it a bit, but you can feel him having this personal connection with this material about someone who created something that had unintended consequences, at least from what his intentions were, and maybe wasn't even entirely sure of what he was doing at the time, but then has to
Hmm.
reckon with it. Yeah, that's very thematic, and I don't want to read too much into Nolan's personal connections with it, but yeah, it's so well made, and you can feel him working through something with this. And as John said, so many connections with the rest of his filmography that you wouldn't expect, but once you start seeing them, they're there. I believe it was Robert Pattinson who gifted him the biography that this is based on after, like, when they were filming Tenet. And like, Robert Pattinson, perfect gift, because like this is everything Nolan has been working through in his career, all in one story, and led to such a great film.
Hmm. And before we talk about our number one films, why don't we talk about some honorable mentions that didn't quite make the list? So, Emma, what are some of your honorable mentions?
So one that I saw the trailer for in theaters and I was like, oh, that might be a fun watch is Gran Turismo based on a true story.
Glad you got the full title there.
I don't know why that has to be the full title, but that's the full title. I thought it was just an enjoyable watch. Not quite as good as Ford v Ferrari, I thought, but still very enjoyable and about racing, so that's always fun to watch. And
And David Harbour is in it, and he plays a grumpy mentor, and that is just David Harbour as the grumpy mentor with a heart of gold. Perfect casting. And then yeah, other honorable mentions
oh,
if you have any.
and the other honorable mention is the Dungeons and Dragons movie. I just had a lot of fun watching it, basically.
Yeah, that's one we watched together at home, and that was one I saw it in theaters. I went to a fan event. I'm not a Dungeons and Dragons fan, but I like that was the earliest showing, and I saw the trailer when it came out, and I was like, oh, that looks kind of bad. But then I kept seeing the trailer in front of movies, and it won me over. So then I saw, oh, there's this fan event, and I'm like, yeah, I'll go along. So much fun, just so great. You could show this to pretty much anyone and they would have a good time. It's this adventure, but it's also a comedy, and the dynamics are good. It's like, I would compare it to Guardians of the Galaxy, just in terms of like the vibes. And I don't care for Guardians of the Galaxy, but I love this one. So yeah, I saw it that once. That I took some friends to see it. That I watched it with my family. and then I watched it with Emma. So I've seen it 4 times, and it's held up every single time. I think this would be like a great airplane movie.
Mhm.
Like you're on a long trip and you need something to pass the time that's just it's gonna fly by, and you're gonna have fun with it while you're trapped in a giant metal box flying through the sky and very uncomfortable. Like this is just, it has that energy. So much fun.
Yeah, and I will say I don't know much about Dungeons and Dragons. I hadn't ever played it before, and I think I played Baldur's Gate after watching the movie, but I still found it very enjoyable, even if I missed a bunch of the references.
Oh yeah, I could tell because I went to the fan event and people were laughing, and I was like, what are they laughing at? But it was only a couple of references that, like, the comedy works no matter how your familiarity with the game. And I have it on good authority though that if you are familiar with the game, it's even better as a film. So, but yeah, it works for everyone. It's the perfect adaptation because if you're a fan of the original, you'll love it. If you're not a fan of the original, you'll also love it.
Didn't quite work for me. Um, I thought it was fun. It was enjoyable. The one thing that I really wish that they did was frame the story around just people playing the game versus just these made up characters within the world of Dungeons and Dragons. That would have made it fun in terms of, okay, why are these characters talking like this? Oh, it's because their players are having this conversation like this. Versus, oh, these people are just wacky and this kind of meta in this world instead of, what it is. But that's just how I would do it.
Yeah, I think if you rewatch it, paying attention to what's going on, you can actually see where they're doing like, oh, that's someone rolled a 1, so that thing failed, and someone rolled a 20, so that thing was a success. I
But
don't
the
know
film
enough
doesn't
about Dungeons
show
and
that
Dragons
or
to
tell
cancel
me
that.
that, so it's
Yeah.
like it's just me putting that into the film versus the film
Well,
being framed by that.
yeah. So
I
so
think
I
like
have.
that.
Oh,
Go
go
on.
go ahead.
Okay, well, I think this is definitely at the end of the day more for the fans of Dungeons and Dragons because one could imagine like, oh, if I'm playing this game, what would it actually look like if I was actually in it? And so I haven't seen the movie, but that's just what I gather from what I've heard about the movie is like, oh, I'm actually living this adventure that I've played on the board, and this is as real as I can get to it without playing it, if
Yeah.
if I could experience it.
Yeah, I have a friend who's a big Dungeons and Dragons fan, and when they saw it, like they were pointing out things of like, oh yeah, that's like apparently there's a thing where something will like task failed successfully. So something it'll technically go through, but something will go wrong with it. So there were times where it was, and the filmmakers behind the film are actual Dungeons and Dragons players. So I do think that is intentional, rather than just like something people are reading into it. I do think there is some level of intentionality, and I might have liked it if there had been cutaways to what they're doing at the table, but I was so invested in the adventure that I didn't bother me that at all. And I thought it might, but it didn't.
So, what are your honorable mentions, Jay?
Yeah. So I have quite a few. My first one is that this is the third in an ongoing series, or at least I hope ongoing. The A Haunting in Venice. So these are the Kenneth Branagh Hercule Poirot um, adaptations. This famous Agatha Christie detective, a very specific character, and then Kenneth Branagh's characterization of him is even more specific. It's like this very odd gentleman who's a detective. And the first two are like these big Hollywood, glamorous, glitzy, glossy murder mysteries with huge casts. This one takes out all of it, and it takes Hercule Poirot and drops him in the middle of a haunted house. And just like this detective, as he's like slowly losing his mind as all of these ghosts are appearing and different weird things are happening, and he has to try and figure out what's going on. And it's just like incredible because it's like creepy, but then it's also sometimes funny and dramatic and everything. And I love campy horror movies, so to see Kenneth Branagh, who is naturally a very campy director and a very campy actor, just embrace and go all out with these like with the horror of it, and it's wonderful. Tina Fey is in it, and she's really good. Michelle Yeoh has a very small part, but is very memorable in it. Um, just yeah, it took a series that I was like, I like the other ones. This one I love. This is above the rest. It is so much fun. And then yeah, my next one is kind of a change of pace. This one's a bit controversial, but I just really loved it. Emerald Fennell's Saltburn, and I won't talk about this too much because I think smarter people than I have talked about it. But I think a lot of the detractors of it have kind of misinterpreted it. Amanda the Jedi, the YouTuber, recently did a video on it that kind of laid out pretty much my thoughts exactly. So I will just point people to that because I don't want to get too much into the weeds on this one. It's a pretty controversial one, but I had fun with it. Um, then I also have another controversial one, Skinamarink. This is a horror film comprised almost entirely of static shots of like furniture or scattered toys on the floor.
Riveting.
Well, here's the thing. Here's the thing. It's very staticky. So as you're watching this and you're hearing the audio and the sound design is so good, and you're like, is that a face in the static or is that just my imagination? And it keeps going like that and it keeps building and it's like this slow build of tension, and then it goes absolutely insane, but in a way that, if you just watch the scary scenes in like a compilation, it's not going to do anything for you. But sitting there in the theater, like the slowly building sense of dread, it's just, it's fascinating. It doesn't work for everyone. I've heard a lot of people who have said, oh, that was super boring and not scary at all. But for me, just sitting there and like watching the shadows and trying to figure out what's going on in the background, what am I not seeing here, was just so terrifying when it finally, yeah, one of the scariest things I've seen. And then other people are like, oh, that was very boring. So again, my mileage may vary on that one, but I just had such a good time with it. Um, then I also have this one is one I think pretty much anyone can like, and this is Anatomy of a Fall. It's a French film about a German woman who, her husband dies and she is caught up in this trial about his murder. They think she might have murdered him. And so it's all about this process of this trial and trying to figure out, did she do it? Did she not do it? They're presenting evidence. It's almost like true crime in sort of its style, and its appeal. And yeah, it's so well made. This won the Palme d'Or at Cannes, made by Justine Triet, the French director, and starring Sandra Hüller, who is this is a big year for her. And her performance here is just incredible. There's so much going on and like digging into the character dynamics, and it's riveting. I would compare it almost to Oppenheimer. It isn't quite at that level of just constantly feeling like an action movie, but it has that excitement to it, even though it's a courtroom drama. And there's a dog in it, and his name is Snoop, and he is a very good dog. um, and then yeah, my last two here. One of them I won't talk about this one too much. Red, White, and Royal Blue. This is an Amazon rom-com that I just thought was really cute and fun and funny. And this actually stars Nicholas Galitzine, who was in Bottoms, my favorite performance of that film. And here he's playing the romantic lead. So it's kind of an interesting contrast between his two roles there. And then my last one, I saw the trailer for this one in the theater. I was like, what's going on? What is this? And then I saw the title, and it completely sold me on this. I am a fan of bad horror movies and dumb puns, so Slaughterhouse, right up my alley. It was playing for one night in theaters. And so I was like, okay, I guess I'm going to see it this night. Phenomenal. Like, so much better than it should be. It's called Slaughterhouse. It stars a very, very bad sloth puppet who's going around and murdering these sorority girls. And it's hilarious from start to finish. And the soundtrack is surprisingly good, and it sells so many of these moments. And you're like, wait a second, am I enjoying Slaughterhouse? And I really enjoyed it. And no one has talked about it, but I just had so much fun with it, so I felt like I needed to bring it up.
I have not seen any of these films, so
Nope.
I've not either, but Anatomy of a Fall is definitely one I want to see. And honestly, you've made me intrigued about Skinamarink, so I will
Okay.
think about it.
Yeah, it again, if you watch it, put your phone in another room, turn off all the lights, because if you aren't invested in it, it won't get you. But if you are invested in it, it will, like, you can feel it, like, even after you finish watching it, you will be afraid to go to bed at night. So if that's something that is interesting to you, yeah.
So Christopher,
Yeah. I'll shout out a few movies basically. So two A24 movies that were highly praised online that I appreciated, probably not as much as the online acclaim, but Iron Claw. It's just well done. That's kind of all I can say about it. It didn't really
Very
rock me as
sad.
much as it did. It is. Didn't
Yeah.
rock me as much as it did other people, but respect. And Past Lives. Again, I don't think it rocked me as hard as it did other people, but I thought it's really solid. I definitely did drive home in silence with no music or anything. Then I watched a film from Iceland that is presently on the short list for this year's Oscars Best International Film. It's called Godland. It's from Iceland. And yeah, this is probably the slowest movie I've seen. And mind you, I haven't seen a lot of movies, but pretty slow. It's a lot of nature shots for the first half. Slow pacing. It's not so much that I love the movie. It's more like I love what the movie is. Yeah, if you love nature, you will love this movie. I recommend it for, obviously, its audience. Dream, Korean movie, stars IU. You love IU. Also stars, I guess I could look up his name. So we have it down here. Or we don't. Okay. Anyways, the Korean actor that was featured in The Marvels. It stars him in Dream.
Yeah.
Dynamic is good, even though it's not romance based. Great ensemble cast. I don't. There's something English related at the end that annoys the heck out of me, but and obviously not in my top 5, but it's enjoyable. And if you like soccer, check it out. One that also my roommate has introduced me to Studio Ghibli. I'm not necessarily like won over, but I respect it. Boy and the Heron is the third Ghibli movie I've seen after Howl's Moving Castle and Spirited Away. I like Howl more than Spirited Away. But I think I like Boy and the Heron more. And I didn't really understand what was going on while watching it. However, did I enjoy it? Yes. There were just fun moments, basically. It was just enjoyable. The most I've enjoyed a Studio Ghibli movie, personally. I saw it was originally on your honorable mention list. Did you have?
I was waiting because I have thoughts on multiple of your honorable mentions.
Oh, okay, my bad. Okay, I wasn't sure. Okay, and then lastly, with Guardians of the Galaxy 3, I don't think the story progression is that great. With its most tragic scene, it's followed up with one of the biggest laughs of the movie, and immediately. And however, like it still made me emotional over a raccoon, great opening song. There and hilarious moments. I'm not the biggest Guardians of the Galaxy fan, but I think simply for the emotional elements, I think this is my favorite Guardians movie. We shall see. I honestly do really like the second one. So we'll see as time plays out which one will win in the end. But yeah, not didn't make it to top 5, but I enjoyed it for what it was to a
Yeah,
degree.
I do agree with Guardians. I don't love the first two, but three just won me over completely. Very emotional, very a lot of funny moments too. Sometimes the comedy, as you said, does undercut the emotions. And I like the characters that are going to die tragically, but also they're the characters are going to die tragically. So it's kind of like it feels a little bit emotionally manipulative just how much they focus on those characters. And you're like, okay, I know what's going to happen, so yeah, it's
And then they manipulate you into thinking they're going to kill people, but then they
yeah,
don't.
yeah. But yeah, just uh, James Gunn was not a director or filmmaker who I resonated with at all until he made The Suicide Squad a few years ago. And since then, I've loved everything he's done. So, Guardians of the Galaxy 3 included, even though I didn't like the first two, which is odd. I don't like Peter Quill, so this one was a lot less Peter centric. So, I think that's probably what it was. You agree with you very much on Past Lives and the Iron Claw. They're really, really well made. But I didn't connect with those as much as sort of the online consensus seems to be. Iron Claw was really, really just a tragic story that was really well made. What One of the interesting things though is you read the actual story it's based on, and it's even sadder. They made it less sad for the movie. Like,
Honestly, I wish they would have just full sended it.
yeah, no, I agree. I agree because there's missing characters and missing pieces there that would have been interesting to see. Past lives, I have never seen New York City represented that way. It is just beautiful. What Celine Song brings to that depiction. So even though I wasn't invested in the relationships of it, there was still the filmmaking of it was strong enough that I found things to like. Godland, I really want to see. I have the Blu-ray. I was
Oh,
gonna
you
watch
do?
it before this, but I ran out of time.
Aw.
I, I I love slow cinema, so what you said sounds like it's right up my alley.
Sweet.
So I am looking forward to that. It is,
Yeah, I'm curious your thoughts.
yeah. It's it's always kind of tough to make time for slow cinema because you have to be
Uh-huh.
in the right headspace.
Yeah.
But next time I am, that's high on my priority list, definitely.
Yeah, I
But
kind
yeah,
of wish I was like in more of that headspace because I was a little restless myself. But yeah, I really
yeah,
hope you like it, and especially now you know how to prep for that headspace.
yeah, yeah, yeah. And then Boy and the Heron. I think every film that Miyazaki has made is a masterpiece. And some sometimes though it takes me a while to get to that point. Spirited Away I didn't love on the first time, didn't love on the second time. Third time made me cry so much.
Hmm.
Totoro, didn't love it the first time I saw it, didn't love it the second time I saw it. Third time, just so much emotion. I was smiling so hard that my face hurt. And all of these Ghibli films, sometimes it takes me a while to get into it, but once I do, it hits me. So The Boy and the Heron is mine here as like it's an honorable mention, but ask me in 5 years and it's probably in my top five.
Yeah, on my end, from what I saw on your list, Christopher, I've only seen Guardians of the Galaxy 3. This was one that was originally on my top 5, but then just thinking about it, I really only care about the rocket scenes because they're emotional, as the character I was really interested in seeing in all these films, and the story that they had for the other characters, I just didn't really care as much. The comedy was hit or miss, and it was very jarring compared to the dark story, and then having this comedy just right after it. And so I liked a third of that film, and I thought, I don't know if this deserves to be in my top five if I only really like a third. So I just kept hoping for other films to just nudge it down the list as the year went by.
Also, I forgot one thing about Guardians 3. The villain. Holy
Yes.
crap.
Yes.
So good.
Yeah.
so good, so
Chukwudi
underutilized.
Iwuji, is that his name? Who plays him? He's
I
like
don't know.
Shakespearean trained and brings that gravitas to the role.
So good.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yes. And so moving on to my honorable mentions. On the bottom, I have Batman: The Doom that came to Gotham.
Yes.
Each year, I normally have a DC animated film on my top five because I've always enjoyed them. This year was a lot of duds, and so the Batman: The Doom that came to Gotham was the only decent one this year, and I don't even care that much for this film. I like the aesthetic, but Jay, you like it more than me because you like H.P. Lovecraft.
Yeah, this is Batman H.P. Lovecraft, and just so good. And the references are so specific that it's fun to just like catch all of the references to specific Lovecraft stories and Lovecraft ideas. And yeah, it's just I had so much fun. I did not know this film exists until you logged it on Letterboxd, and I immediately ordered it with like the Prime shipping to come later that same day. I was like, I need to watch this right now. So thank you for logging it on Letterboxd, because that was a joy to watch.
Yeah.
And now I've read part of the comic book as well, and I need to finish that because just so good.
Next honorable mention was a film that was close to being the top five, and that's Leave the World Behind. This was just random film that I was scrolling through Netflix and it's like, that came out in 2023. Maybe it's good. And I started watching it and like, oh, I'm interested in this concept. It sounds interesting. I like the way it's going. It's like a Twilight Zone episode. I really like Twilight Zone. It, and I was watching it and the film kept going. It's like, okay, we're getting to that whatever is going to happen at the end. And then the film ends. And I'm like, wait, what? Is that it? Where's the last 10 minutes? Where's the characters coming together? Where's the what's next? It's just this? Is this our catharsis? What? And so that really bummed me out because this was already on top five just in just watching it for like 30 minutes. It's like, okay, it's really good. And then it ends and it disappoints me. And you know how you were talking about endings, Christopher? This was one that just really brought this film down for me. It's like, I'm so disappointed by this ending. I liked most of it, and then it ends, and now I don't care for it anymore. So, what a shame.
This was one where I completely understand that, but I think the ending is brilliant in how it denies the audience catharsis while giving the character catharsis, which is just such an interesting thing. Now, I love Sam Esmail, who's the filmmaker behind this. He's also known for creating Mr. Robot, as well as Homecoming, the TV show, which also stars Julia Roberts. And their work together is just really interesting because they don't seem like the types of like the director and actor duo that you would think of. Because Julia Roberts, she's a comedy person, and Sam Esmail is like technological drama, but they work so well together. And yeah, I just the way it like unfurls is so interesting to me, and how it's about this question of like are humans inherently good or are humans inherently bad? And the answer is like maybe a little bit of both. And I find that interesting. And then yeah, the ending, I completely understand why people find it frustrating. But for me, people finding it frustrating makes it more interesting to me as an ending. Like watching it and be like, oh, people are going to hate this, and I actually think that is interesting. And yeah, did it make my top 5? I don't know. Probably doesn't even make my top 10, but it's definitely in my top 20.
Next up, we have The Killer from Netflix. This is directed by David Fincher, correct?
Yes.
Yes. Um, and it's similar to John Wick in that you have this character who goes on this revenge plot after some organization does something personal to him. And I watched this film very soon after watching the 4 John Wick films, and that was a huge mistake because this film is just John Wick but without the action. The action is just our main character planning, being very methodical, slowly getting to his role, and it happens. And it was very well done. But after watching John Wick, it was like, huh, okay, it's kind of like a very diet off-brand John Wick.
Yeah, I love this more than John Wick. I already talked about why I don't like
Sure.
John Wick, but we're inside Michael Fassbender's head as he's doing these things, and like he's talking to himself in his own head, and I'm like, oh, that's something I do a lot, so I kind of relate to it. But then as it's going along, you're realizing, oh, he's hyping himself up. He's like, I'm such a good assassin. Here's all of my steps of what I do, and then he like fails. Like there's a moment where he's like, if I shoot the nail gun in this exact person in this exact spot, knowing this guy is like 50 years old and in good health, he will stay alive for 3 minutes. Shoots the gun, guy dies. Just like the comedy of what he thinks in his head and then what's actually going on, and like because you think he's like, oh, this great assassin, this entire first 20 minutes is just building this up, and then he's like, oh no, that's not actually what he is. So it's just fascinating to see the process of all of that, and then to see the difference between what he thinks of himself and what actually is happening. But yeah, another one where it's like I like it a lot, but it's not in my top list.
Yeah. Next up, I have Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Mutant Mayhem. It's the new Turtle film by Seth Rogen. Yes, Seth Rogen.
Yeah,
So me, I grew up with the Ninja Turtles. I like the Ninja Turtles, but it's one of those things where each new time they do a new Ninja Turtles things, it's so drastically different from each other one that it's like, okay, you're either gonna like what they do or you're not gonna like what they do. Me, I had I could tell that they did a good job with what they're doing. It's well done and well animated, but it's not what I liked from the Turtles from me growing up, and so I wasn't the audience for this one. So that's why it's not higher. Um and then the next thing on my honorable mentions is the FNAF movie, Five Nights at Freddy's. Just because this is one that we've been waiting a long time for. Like this thing was supposed to originally come out in 2016. It's
Holy.
yeah, and then in 2023 finally came out. Is it a great movie? No, but like I enjoyed it as a casual fan of FNAF. So there you
when it's
go.
not Josh Hutcherson trying to lucid dream, which is about half of the movie, it's actually not bad. The
hmm
animatronic work is so good, and when they finally get into like the FNAF part where like the animatronics are hunting people down, then it's really good. But that's like 20 minutes of the movie in total. Um, yeah, Matthew Lillard is so good in it. Awesome. Hope he comes back at some point for a sequel. And Matt Pat shows up, and I will admit that was the moment that got me. I was watching this in a theater full of like kids. And that was the one moment where the kids and I were all on the same. Like, even though I haven't watched Game Theory in years, I was like, that's Matt Bat. And he says, that's just a theory. And I was like, that's the line.
Yeah, great to be a fan for sure. Except maybe not this past week. So yeah, the last honorable mention I have is a film called Suzume. This is from the director who previously did Your Name and Weathering with You. Makoto Shinkai, I believe his name is.
Yep.
I'd liked those past two films, and I thought, oh, this is a new one. This technically came out in 2022, but the dub came out in 23 in theaters over here, so that was iffy in the county.
Yep.
It counts. This one it's an interesting one. It's one that I wanted to enjoy, but I wasn't the audience for it. This one, like, American audience thinks, oh, it's this romance between this girl and a chair. By the way, there's these mystical earthquake door things. In reality, it's just this director continuing his journey of reflecting on the different aspects of the tsunami and earthquake that hit Japan over a decade ago. And after learning about, oh, that's what the real thing of this film was about, looking back on his other films, just like, oh, they share very similar ideas of disasters and weather and whatnot. And this one was like all about that, but I didn't quite understand the meaning behind it, and so it didn't quite hit for me as his other films did. But I still really enjoyed it for the most part.
Yeah, I just recently saw that, and I would agree. The animation was my favorite part of it. The chair stuff was also kind of fun, but I never felt emotionally engaged in it. And I think it's so specific to that moment in Japanese history that if you don't have that emotional connection to the tragedy, it's a little bit more difficult to engage with the story.
Yeah. Did you watch it, Emma?
No.
Oh, really? I watched.
I didn't really
this-
like Your Name or Weathering with You, so I wasn't too interested in it.
Yeah. If you weren't interested in those, this one won't interest you. I did really like how it feels like a Ghibli adventure set in the modern day. Like a fantasy Ghibli adventure, but set in the modern day. Though it's a bit too like plotty for that. Usually the Ghibli movies are like the plot is a little bit more ethereal.
All right. Well, then now let's talk about our number one film of this year, and let's start with Emma.
So for me, it was Godzilla -1, and we've already talked about it, so I won't go too in depth. But I just liked how much like emotion and humanness there was in here, and as I said before, this made me want to watch Oppenheimer because this is the Japanese side that was missing from Oppenheimer. So it's kind of cool that we got both sides to the war story in the same year.
Yeah, when I watched this film, the first thing I thought is like, wow, this would be a really good companion piece to Oppenheimer. They're both set in like similar time periods. You got Oppenheimer on this guy's perspective. Now we got the aftermath, but we have Godzilla in this one, so cool. So yeah, really enjoyable.
Yeah, and I already talked about this, but yeah, well, so good.
All right.
So yeah, my number one is one that really hasn't been seen much. This caught my attention. It premiered at the Cannes Film Festival, and that's where I heard about it. And I didn't hear much about it. I just heard, this is one to go in knowing as little as possible. So I'm going to try and keep things very, very spoiler free. But this is, I'm going to get the name wrong, aren't I? Well, this is a Japanese film titled Monster, and it is directed by Hirokazu Koreeda, who's the director of Shoplifters and, what's that one called? The one about babies in drop boxes, I think.
Broker?
in Korea.
I don't know.
Broker, yeah, Broker.
Really?
Yeah,
Same director?
yeah, same director.
Oh,
And
dang.
yeah, he's just an incredibly talented director. Then this is written by Yuji Sakamoto, who's a famous Japanese screenwriter, and this is their first film together. But it's about this. Well, it starts out being about this mother in this small Japanese city who her son starts acting oddly, and she starts to suspect that something is going on at the school, and that the teacher is kind of this kid's teacher is kind of bullying him. And so she tries to figure out, what's going on and tries to get this teacher fired. Well, as the film goes on, we see different perspectives being brought in, and what you think is happening isn't what's happening. And the characters you think you realize you don't actually know who they are and what's going on with them. And it's just incredible. I mean, the title is Monster, so you're kind of thinking throughout here, okay, who's the monster? Is it this teacher? Is it the mom? Who's it gonna be? Um, but the message of the film is like there are no monsters, and that everyone has their own perspective in it and their own reasons for doing what they do. It's just so emotionally touching, and really what brings it all together is all in this last hour where it takes a very very different tone. um it just touched me in such a deep way that I wasn't expecting. And yeah, it's incredible. I wish more people were watching it. What wonderful if any of you get the chance, you probably would find something to enjoy in it. And anyone listening, that's why I'm kind of trying to avoid spoilers. It is worth forget everything I've said about it, except that you should go and see it. Because the less you know going in, the more it unfolds for you in very interesting ways.
I haven't seen it.
It's disappointing. It was in theaters around me for 1 week, so I saw it twice in that 1 week because I wanted to see it in theaters again. And yeah, now it is unavailable until like next month anywhere.
Is it gonna hit Hulu or something?
It's Wellgo USA that's
Oh,
distributing
okay.
it in the US. So I don't know where their stuff ends up, but
Okay.
presumably where their stuff ends up.
Gotcha. Yeah, I don't know. I know like a couple like Korean movies they distribute that are older are currently on Netflix, but I don't know where they currently go.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, it's hitting digital next
Gotcha.
month. But yeah, if it shows up on a streaming service, it's definitely worth giving a whirl.
Okay. Gotcha. Because I know Broker is currently on Hulu, so I was wondering like was it the same distributor or not. Broker might
Yeah.
be Neon.
Yeah, I think Broker is Neon, and they have that. I think, yeah, they have a deal with Hulu.
Gotcha.
I couldn't remember if they were owned by Hulu or if they have a deal with Hulu, but I think it's a deal. So,
guess we'll move to my number one.
Yep.
yeah.
The Holdovers. This was again another movie that I saw online, people talking about it, and I'm like, you know what? I'm gonna go see it. And my roommate, he loves going to a theater. Me, not so much. But I'm like, you know what? I want to see this movie. You know, I have a 23 list I have to make, and I didn't even notice it was a Christmas movie. I went into it as so blind. I just saw people loving the movie basically, and I'm like, I'm gonna go see it. So I went to see it, and I loved it. It's just very human. Someone described it as like a cozy blanket. Yes, I smiled at the end of the movie. I just yelled in the theater like, "This is so good!" After the credits. I'm mindful. Just oh my god, I love the movie. I do wonder though, how will it be on a rewatch? Obviously, I'm gonna give it its time, but will it hit the same? I hope it will. Sometimes you second guess things, but from what I remember from my first time watching it, I absolutely loved it. So,
Yeah.
highly recommend it.
I would say it does hit on a rewatch, especially when you watch it with other people, where you can laugh along to the jokes, but also feel the emotions together.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, I mean, it's a Christmas movie basically, so those are always kind of fun to rewatch around the holidays.
Yeah, I'm definitely going to consider it next year for sure.
And so now we move on to my number one, and it's everybody's talked about this film already, and it's Godzilla minus one. Um, I'm a huge Godzilla fan. They announced this thing. It's like, oh yeah, cool, another Japanese Godzilla film. The last one that came out in theaters was Shin Godzilla, and that one was a good one, but it was different, but good. And for this one, I was like, okay, yeah, I'm a Godzilla fan. I'll watch it eventually. And then it came out, and I was looking for films, and it's like, you know what? I like Godzilla. I'll watch it, and maybe it'll just automatically be on my list because I like Godzilla. And then I watched it, and I loved it. I just was really surprised by just how I actually cared about these people. And a lot of the best Godzilla films are when Godzilla is not just the monster that destroys Japan or fights the other bigger monster. It's when Godzilla has a thematic purpose to what it is. Obviously, the original film Godzilla was the result of atomic bomb testing. In Shin Godzilla, he represented the tsunami and earthquake from that event over a decade ago. This one was I was thinking, it's like, oh, are they gonna do that the same thing? Yes and no. This one, Godzilla, thematically, was just the most personal that he had been. It's the personal thematic element to the main character and how the character's actions are affected by Godzilla and what Godzilla means to it. And I just really resonated with that idea and how I'm not going to say too much in case anyone hasn't seen it, but like it's great. There's an ending twist that is one of the things that people are talking about are a slight issue. And at first I thought it was, but then I asked myself, does it like disrupt the thematic element of the film? And I thought about it and it's like, oh no. It actually enhances the thematic element and comes full circle. And it's like, oh, great. Now I love this film even more. And yeah, I liked it, obviously.
We all liked it. Yeah, to some degree or another, I think we are all on a somewhat similar page
Top
with it.
3 on all of our lists. So.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Well, let's
What
talk about our
didn't we
least
like?
favorite film.
So for me, it's this film called Knights of the Zodiac. It was at the time when I was looking for more movies to watch. Jay recommended this to be a contender for the worst. Not because it's a bad movie, but it's because it's a not decent movie that I would probably be able to watch the whole way through. And I think that's a pretty fair representation. I liked it more than I thought I would. In some ways, it reminded me of Shang-Chi. It's like this orphan guy who has hidden powers who then has to go fulfill his destiny. And I thought it was decently made for a low-level budget movie. The one main disappointing thing was the first fight the main character got in looked better than the last final battle. Because the first one, it was him in like a fighting ring doing normal fighting, and the McKenna, who's the actor, is really good at that. But then the last one was this really badly done CGI fight. So, and then I found out afterwards it's an anime adaptation, so a lot of people didn't like it. I thought as its own thing, it's an okay film, but I'm guessing the anime is a lot better.
Yeah, I was thinking of watching it, but then I didn't because I was like, wait a second, I don't need to watch that. I've seen the trailer. Yeah, my worst movie. This is maybe a bit controversial. I saw the Super Mario Brothers movie in theaters, and I thought, oh, that was kind of fun. I saw it at home a few months later, and it immediately became apparent that there is nothing to that movie besides spotting the references. It just got so annoying. the music, it's all the same music Illumination uses in all of their movies. Mr. Blue Sky is in a Mario movie. Why? Mario music is so good. Why are they using generic movie music that Guardians of the Galaxy already used? Yeah, the plot is the plot. It's one of my favorite critics, Film Crit Hulk, wrote an essay about how it makes you feel like the characters have character development without actually developing the characters. Like there's the big emotional moment where Mario finally stands up for Luigi. What's Mario's one defining character trait throughout the whole movie? He stands up for Luigi. There is no development to these characters. Outside of spotting those references, there's just nothing there. And so rewatching it, it was just this slow realization of like, oh, this is just bad. And it's maybe not the worst of the year, but it was so annoying that I was like, okay, this is. And I know other people here have seen it, so that's a little bit more interesting than if I were to talk about, I don't know, The Boogeyman, the movie that has the novel idea of what if the monster represented grief, that thing that movies have been doing for over a decade. Anyway, Mario, just, yeah. First time it was fine, second time definitely not. And I feel so bad for the parents who have to rewatch it so many times because their kids love it.
Yep.
Did you watch
it
them
one
already?
time.
Oh, sorry.
I watched it once, and then Jay told me he didn't like it the second rewatch, so I'm just not going to watch it again.
I haven't seen it yet, so.
Okay, that's what I was gonna ask. Like, wondered, John, is that like a movie you might watch one day?
See, I'm finding it less likely that I'm gonna watch it each day. It's like
Yeah.
I'm not really a big Mario fan in general, so I don't really care. Maybe one day,
No,
if I feel like
John,
it.
one day we are potentially going to have to watch it.
Oh no!
Billy
Did
If
it
you
do
get-
it? Did it do that much?
Yep.
Ah! Okay.
Oh, are you doing a billion?
Yeah.
Oh my god.
Mm,
That's what, like 60 movies or something.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think it's 51, but
Is
it's
it
a lot.
51?
Yeah, I might
Holy
be wrong.
crap.
I don't remember the number, but yeah, it is one of those. So,
That's gonna be a long series to do, guys. Dang.
we did Barbie. So.
Yeah, but those are also shorter.
Yeah, but we
Yeah.
did Nolan, and we were doing Monster High, Beverly
How
Hills
many Monster
Chihuahua.
High movies are there?
Too many.
17.
Yeah, not as big as Barbie. But anyway, how about your least favorite film, Christopher?
Mm-hmm.
Great, good choice. Is it that bad?
Yes. So one day, I'm on Apple TV Plus, and I'm just looking, and my roommate saw that this movie has Gordon Levitt. Is it? What's his first name?
Joseph.
Joseph
Yeah.
Gordon-Levitt. And he's like, oh, I'm interested in that. I'm like, cool. I added my list. It comes out on Wednesday, and we watched it that Friday because my roommate thought. This movie is called Flora and Son. More like, go and ignore it. It's so bad. I don't think I've seen a movie that made. It's so bad. Oh my god. This is the biggest living piece of cringe that I've ever seen. Like, fine. If you like Levitt, fine. He's fine in it. The part of the movie is like music, and the songs are just bad. So much so, you know what? I wrote a review on Letterboxd, and I took like 2 quotes from the movie and I combined it to make my review. And I got locked out of my Letterboxd account for 2 days. They removed it. And that makes me hate the movie even more, but I hated the movie well enough before then. I just, oh my god. And you know what? the movie I think is based in, is it Ireland? I
Yeah.
think it is. So now I just hate their accents.
Oh,
Just this movie made me hate the Irish. If you don't want to hate the Irish, don't watch this movie. If you want to experience bad songs, go ahead and watch this movie. But I recommend you don't. I hate this so much. Please don't subject yourself. But also, please do, because I want to see if you'll hate it too. Oh my god. Yeah. So probably yes. The holdovers made me happy and crap, but maybe Florence Son has made me the most emotional out of any 2023 movie. And that emotion indeed is anger. And my god. Yeah.
well, my least favorite film of the year, to close off the least favorite films of the year, mine is Ant-Man 3, Ant-Man and the Wasp:
Quantumania.
Quantumania. Um, I was vaguely looking forward to this because I had enjoyed the previous Ant-Man films. This one has nothing that made those other films good. It's just not funny. The story is uh there, and Bill Murray is there. He shows up, doesn't do anything, he's gone. What a waste of Bill Murray. But like the visually, they go to the quantum realm, which should be visually interesting, and it was in the other films. Here it's just bland and boring, and it's like, oh, there are other people that live here. Oh, they're exactly like every other people everywhere else, just boring and unimaginative. One guy's a broccoli. I guess that's cool. Only thing decent about this film was Kang,
Mm-hmm.
but like he's poorly used, so yeah, no, just a real shame. At least like I'm not even mad. I can't be angry at this film, but it's so underwhelming. It's just uh man, that's a shame.
Yeah, King was the best part of that movie, except for his ending in terms of story. And that is really what killed the movie for me and really maybe say, my God, the MCU is a glorified TV show. I have to wait for the next episode to see what's going to happen in the adventures of multiple kings. I just.
Or how about no more kings? Um,
uh,
let's not just.
this movie gave me a headache. I watched it in theaters and it gave me a headache. It is ugly. It is long. It is joyless, but it has that MCU humor that's starting to get more and more annoying. And yeah, every time I'm like, wait a second, was that movie more interesting than I gave it credit for? And then I remember, oh yeah, Kang. No, it's not more interesting than I gave it credit for. Um, yeah, it's just I think it might be the worst MCU movie. Now, Secret Invasion is the worst MCU property ever, but this
Mhm.
it just doesn't work. And yeah, it's unfortunate that stuff like the Marvels, which is actually kind of fun, gets lumped in with this, which is just a complete misfire. And yeah, it gave me a headache. That's my main review.
And let's not reflect on just garbage. What are we?
Yeah.
So let's just talk about what are we looking forward to next year in terms of films. How about you, Emma?
I am looking forward to Dune Part 2. I really liked the first one, and so I'm looking forward to the second one.
I every time I rewatch the first Dune, I like it a little bit less. And I started out really liking it, and I'm to like, yeah, it's fine. But I just saw the trailer recently in theaters, and I'm like, oh yeah, I'm on board for Dune Part 2. IMAX opening day.
I'm
Yeah,
still waiting to just watch the other Dune stuff before I watch the new stuff. So
you should definitely catch up. I think you'll enjoy it on some level.
we'll see. Yes.
But yeah, my most anticipated is, of course, Bong Joon Ho's next film, Mickey 17. I've seen all of Bong Joon Ho's films. I've loved most of them, Okja and Parasite especially. So I'm just waiting for this to finally come out. It was supposed to come out a while ago, and now it's finally, apparently they just delayed the release date, unfortunately, but hopefully this year. Fingers crossed. Yeah, I don't have much more to add than that.
Christopher?
I'm a sad little guy because I don't want to watch that movie so bad. I will say, for the sake of diversity, I like Mickey 17 is definitely probably there for me, but also, I've seen Robert Eggers' The Witch and The Lighthouse, and I really like them. The Lighthouse was especially like immersive for me. My God, I love that movie. Um, I've not seen The Northman. So I don't know how to say the name.
Nosferatu,
Nosferatu.
I
Um,
believe. I don't know.
and
It's
we'll
a
Say what?
silent movie, so it doesn't
yeah,
matter.
we'll go with that. I think for me, I'm not necessarily one who is able to do well with gore, and to hear that this is about vampires makes me a little hesitant. But also, like, I respect his work, and so I am anticipating it. So we'll see if I will be able to watch it simply on the gore end, if it does or doesn't feature it. But I was like looking at the calendar, and I'm like, you know what? This is up there for me. Both Mickey 17 and Nosferatu are quite anticipated for me in 24.
Yeah, I liked the Witch. I loved the Lighthouse. I especially loved the Northmen.
Hmm.
And then I actually just for Halloween I did one spooky movie each day for the month of October, and one of the first ones I did was the original Nosferatu, the silent film, because I had never
Hmm.
seen it before.
Hmm.
Um, so yeah, I'm even more excited for this one after that. And when
Hmm.
I saw it on your list, I was very happy because I wanted the opportunity to talk about it as well. And just
Yeah.
like, yeah, I'm so curious to see what it is. They've released a few images, and it looks
Hmm.
really, really interesting.
And
And
we get more Willem Dafoe. Come on.
yeah, yeah, I am excited.
So my most anticipated film of next year, instead of just being obvious and saying, "Ah, the new Godzilla film" or whatever, I decided to go with Deadpool 3. Now, do I think this film's gonna be good or great? Not really. I hope I just enjoy it. Did I think that the other films are good and great? I thought they were okay, and they went for me. But I can enjoy some aspects of this. Really, I'm just hoping to have a good time with Deadpool and Hugh Jackman. Those two have a great friendship in real life. Hopefully, it works well and on screen. I enjoy a good multiverse thing. Hopefully, we have something decent and just fun and not bogged down by everything. So hopefully it's just a good fun time.
Yeah, I'm curious to see. This is the only Marvel movie coming out next year. I'm
Ah,
curious to see what they're going to do after, what has been a horrible year for them just across the board. They went from, at the start of the year, people were like, oh yeah, Marvel, pretty good. Now everyone hates it. So
Mhm.
I'm really curious to see how they're able to pull things together, or if they aren't able to pull things together, it will probably still be interesting to watch the
sure.
fallout.
Yeah.
I'm just nervous about the gore end because they're teasing it's going to be more violent than the other ones. I'm like, yay!
Yay. Because that's what I liked about the other films, the violence and not the different comedy aspect of it. But like that's for next year to talk about. Anyway, that's pretty much all we have for this podcast. Any final thoughts you guys have for this past year?
I thought it was a very good year for movies. I enjoyed a lot of the ones that I saw. So
This is like the first year where I've kind of was intentionally like, let me try to watch some good movies from this year. So I don't really have a lot to compare to other years. But I have some movies on my list that I really enjoyed, even if I'm not in love with them as others were. Like I can still acknowledge that like they're solid movies, and so I think I can appreciate that. And I also do look forward to enjoying movies more in general.
Jay?
Yeah, I mean, very interesting year. I love the movies that I love from this year, and then yeah, there are others that I didn't connect with as much as this podcast definitely showed. But I'm happy that people feel invested in stuff that is not superhero movies this year. The biggest movies of the year, besides Super Mario, which is its own thing, are a movie about a doll that is like also this weird subversive comedy that has like very overt feminist themes, and then this 3 hour long biopic about J. Robert Oppenheimer. What's going on in cinema? It's so exciting. I am looking forward to what the future brings. A little bit trepidatious. This holiday season has been worse for theaters than really they needed. None of the Aquaman didn't hit, Marvels didn't hit. Wonka has been doing pretty well, but it's not the huge hit that theaters need to really stay relevant. But I think with things like Barbie and Oppenheimer, the future is looking bright still.
I'm very curious though, like after like a movie like Godzilla minus one, like then like the talk about the Apple TV show completely went silent on Twitter. And then like is that gonna affect the new Godzilla X Kong movie? Like is sales gonna hurt after like people see a good Godzilla movie? I'm curious, like, is there still like this quote mainstream appeal? Is a new Lion King movie actually going to make money, or like
Yeah.
are like these things that were popular even 5 years ago, are they essentially a thing of the past now, and are we moving on as a society? I kind of hope so.
Yeah, it's very exciting, and it's I've been this year delving more into Hollywood history, and the 1950s and 60s were a complete revolution in film. And I think we're seeing a similar trend here. That was there, they were getting rid of the studio system and this very tight control that studios had over films and over actors, and bringing in more, auteur filmmakers, and letting more artistic creativity flourish. And here I think we're seeing a similar thing. These big franchise movies are collapsing. Well, meanwhile, I mean, yeah, it's a biopic about J. Robert Oppenheimer. How is that the third highest grossing film of the year? But then you watch it and you're like, yeah, it works so well, and it's this creative vision, and yeah, it makes me excited for the future.
And with that, I think it's time to say goodbye. We've talked a really long time this time around.
Yeah.
It's our longest top 5 of the year. Congratulations, Christopher, for joining us on that.
You're welcome. It's my fault. I apologize.
It's great. It's great. And with that, thank you guys for listening, and we'll see you all next time. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.